Hey everybody, Off the Mic Wrestling Show here on YouTube, reacting to AEW Dynamite, the Go Home edition ahead of All Out this Saturday in Chicago. This was in Milwaukee. A lively crowd, treated to a pretty pedestrian to below average show. I mean, that's kind of been what AEW has been, but there was a hot beginning and a hot end. Maybe one of the best endings to any professional wrestling show that I have seen this year. Like, this was about as good as anything as I've seen with Swerve and Hangman, and we'll talk about that later on. But let's start, let's go chronologically through this thing, and like they say, save the best for last. So we start with Daniel Garcia, gets a good ovation. It's Excalibur, Tony Schiavone, and Taz on commentary with Justin Roberts in the ring as he introduces Daniel Garcia. And Daniel basically calls out MJF, says, I don't want to wait until All Out. I want to break your neck tonight. And so MJF's actually up on the concourse. He's having a glass of wine. He's protected by a bunch of security guards. And he basically says, yeah, I don't want there to be any excuses when I paint your blood on the canvas and break your neck at All Out. So he said, MJF said, unlike Garcia, he doesn't attack people from behind like a coward. Interesting choice, but good heel things there. He said he's damn sure doesn't do the same for an emaciated skinhead looking dude on Ozempic. MJF, I'm on Ozempic. Why do you got to go there, buddy? That MJF kind of toes the line, and some of this stuff is just the same, like, you know, mean-spirited insults. It's the same shtick. MJF's so good and so charismatic and so entertaining that I'm willing to look past a lot of this, but it's just like it's the same act 5 years later. So Garcia said everyone knows that everything that MJF said was a lie and that everything about him is a lie. Garcia points out MJF's tan. He talks about the trip to Turkey for a hair transplant that didn't even work. That pissed MJF off. Garcia said the fakest thing about MJF is his love for AEW. He also said MJF could have had as many fake tattoos on the back of his leg as he wants. People will never believe that he loves AEW. MJF tries to speak, but Garcia cuts him off, said he wants MJF and the people who love him to suffer. He said that if MJF can ever find a woman who will pretend to care about him for more than a year, he wants him to marry her and have a kid. So he didn't mention Alicia by name. I don't know where that situation is, where that relationship is, but that was an interesting line from Daniel Garcia. So then Garcia said MJF will think about him when he feels a tingle from his neck to his toes when he picks up his ugly ass baby, and said the kid will ask if he was a wrestler, and MJF will have to tell the child that he was a wrestler until Daniel Garcia ended his career. MJF stood up and applauded him. For a second, I thought that when Daniel Garcia belted this line, he basically said, no, when your kid asks you who you're wrestling, no, I was a sports entertainer, going back to his old things, but I guess they've distanced themselves from that whole character and that gimmick the first opportunity that they had a chance to really get behind Daniel Garcia. So MJF takes a seat. Do you guys hear that? Danny learned how to talk. Danny learned how to speak. He learned how to talk. MJF said Garcia has so much to learn and so much maturing to do. He said he was trying to do Daniel Garcia a solid when he dumped him on his head with that pile driver, that angle in the heel turn. He said people used to love him. MJF chant breaks out. MJF said it was too late. He then said he got too big and the fans turned on him like rats. Said Garcia shouldn't want their love or championship belts because the more he gains, the more fans will want to see him fail or fall. MJF said Garcia's friends and family will turn on him after All Out, but he would make sure they couldn't hurt Garcia the way they hurt him. There's an uncensored version of Shut the Fuck Up. So TBS letting things go. MJF said he would protect Garcia by putting him in a wheelchair. MJF said the one person Garcia can trust is his mother. Said that she's a good woman who will take care of Garcia when he's laid up in bed. Lord knows you won't be the first man lying on their back in her bed that she happily attended to. And MJF said that as a smirk. And that sets off the real good part of this. MJF going there, I get it. It's a heat-filled segment. So Garcia leaves the ring. He hops the barricade. He fights a bunch of security people. Gets to MJF's section, knocks down 2 more security guards, but MJF just cracks a wine bottle over him and the commentary team saying, man, this was exactly what MJF wanted. He played to Garcia like a fiddle. Garcia's bleeding. MJF sat down next to him, put his arm around him. He said, every man must go through hell before he gets to paradise. He thanked Garcia for awakening something in him. He said he would send Garcia straight to paradise on Saturday. And then MJF said, you could thank me later. He kissed Garcia's bloody forehead, dabbed the blood with his finger, and then sucked it off his finger, and that's the end of the segment. This was so great. And listen, I said that the segment in the Go Home show right before All In between Ospreay and MJF that got really, really personal in a personal feud that was already personal went way too long. This was the perfect length. This went about 10 minutes. They got in their barbs. They condensed it a lot more. And you got to the heat-filled conclusion where MJF got one up on Garcia. He shows that he's the superior guy. He's the veteran, even though they're about the same age. So, yeah, this was a good segment. I really like this. I like the heat going into this feud. I would imagine, but then again, maybe I'm wrong. I think the logical decision here is to put Daniel Garcia over. I know that's 2 straight losses for MJF. Maybe you want to stretch this out and MJF gets the heat, but especially with him getting the heat in this go-home angle, it makes a lot of sense for Daniel Garcia, and especially considering he just re-signed, you've got to make him kind of look like the superior guy at least. And I don't think this is the first match. This is the only match that they're going to have. But I really enjoyed this start. Then like I said, the show just started to lose me a little bit. We did get the conglomeration, and God bless Mark Briscoe. He is a breath of fresh air. Just as goofy as he is, he's just so endearing. Kyle O'Reilly, he's unlocked something in Kyle O'Reilly. Kyle O'Reilly's being so goofy and entertaining. Orange Cassidy's the straight man in this whole thing. Willow Nightingale was also there. So Will Ospreay is going to join the conglomeration with Orange Cassidy and Kyle O'Reilly in a trios match in the show's main event. Ospreay then joins the interview and asks if Mark Briscoe had any words of wisdom, and God bless Mark Briscoe. He is just always a breath of fresh air. He does his usual fun mode, recapping how the team agrees to team with Ospreay, got him fired up and everything, gives him the word of the day. It's so great. Mark Briscoe, and I think a great thing, one of the few redeeming things about AEW has been that Mark Briscoe, in the midst of the tragic passing of his brother, the Briscoe brothers, a great tag team in the history of Ring of Honor, and they got a great run in Tony Khan's Ring of Honor, and then coming out of the tragic passing last year, Mark Briscoe has really become, honest to God, one of the best parts of Dynamite. He's just a joy to watch in the ring. He's a joy to watch on the microphone. He is just a national treasure, and I use that term in a lot of different promotions. I use that when I talk about R-Truth. I use that when I talk about certain people across the board. Just guys who are really gifted at what they do and being just goofy and entertaining and lighting up the audience no matter what they're given. So that was fun. So then we get a match that I for the love of God, I did a primer earlier on the channel, and I just have no fucking idea. There's no logic behind this match whatsoever. And listen, I like Kyle Fletcher. I think he's really talented. He's really young. But he has lost so fucking much. He lost to Ricochet last week. And where the fuck was Ricochet on this show? Your big high-profile signing didn't even make this show. Like, what the hell are we doing? And so Kyle Fletcher gets one win against Tomohiro Ishii on Collision, another guy who's lost a lot. And he gets a Continental Championship match against Kazuchika Okada, one of your high-profile signings, who just went 20 minutes with Claudio Castagnoli a couple weeks ago before All In. Like, all due respect to Kyle Fletcher, this just felt like throwing a match on TV just so Okada can get some TV time. And AEW Tribalists will try to convince you, they're putting over a young guy. How often can you keep putting the same guy in the same situation against another star and lose? And another thing, this doesn't make Kazuchika Okada look good either, because they went almost to the full time limit at 20 minutes. So Fletcher sets up Okada for a tombstone late in this match. Okada countered out of it, hit a big clothesline, one more time chant. So Okada hits another clothesline. Then Okada goes for the Rainmaker. Fletcher ducks. Fletcher suffered a second Rainmaker attempted, and so he got out of that and suplexed Okada. Fletcher hit a leaping tombstone pile driver that they did a good job of pointing out on commentary that he didn't hit it effectively fully, which kind of actually made it look like it wasn't his finish. But it's just like so many of these big time moves in these matches. So then Justin Roberts gets on the mic, says there's 1 minute remaining in this match. Is like, why did this need to go this long? Fletcher went up top, but Okada ducked behind referee Rick Knox, worst referee in wrestling, who just, in general just does a terrible job. And this finish was kind of executed really weird. Fletcher dropped from the ropes. Okada shoved the referee out of the way and then teased whipping Fletcher toward Knox, who covered his head. And Rick Knox, being the terrible official he is, missed Okada going dick kick city, yambag city. And then Okada hits the Rainmaker for the win. This went 19 and a half minutes. I could have done with about 9 minutes of this, and it would have been a much more digestible and much more effective match. Kyle Fletcher does not need to be going 20 minutes with Kazuchika Okada. All due respect to him, I think he's got a fine career ahead of him. He has been showcased very well. The biggest problem is when you showcase a guy too much and he doesn't win. You have cases like this where you're putting one of your top stars in a random championship match thrown together on television against a guy who's had one win in a singles variety recently, and he just lost to your top star in Ricochet, who you just brought in and rolled out the red carpet for, and Ricochet doesn't get this championship match? So explain that to me. Konosuke, the part that I did like about this, although what this is leading to, there's going to be, I guess, collisions happening on Friday, and so I guess what they're doing is that they are going to have 3 qualifying matches, and 3 winners of those matches are going to face Kazuchika Okada in a 4-way Continental Championship match at All Out. I don't know why that needs to happen, but one of the participants in one of those qualifying matches is Konosuke Takeshita. He came out to check on his boy Kyle Fletcher after the match, and he jawed at him. I love this. Give me Takeshita and Okada, because maybe that will unlock whatever the hell this dollar store version of Kazuchika Okada that has been existing on television and is just stealing money from Tony Khan. Because he's going at 30%, maybe closer to 40 at this point. He's beefing up every week. This was a good match. But again, it didn't need to go as long as it did. And frankly, it didn't need to happen, all due respect to Kyle Fletcher. So the matches, Excalibur announced during and after the match what was going on here. So it's Orange Cassidy and Brian Keith. I would expect Orange Cassidy to win that match. Mark Briscoe and Lance Archer. I wouldn't be surprised to see Archer get the win here and then have a case to face Mark Briscoe for the Ring of Honor Championship. Although I'm not big on beating champions, so I would go Briscoe in that case, and then I would have Takeshita beat the Beast Mortos, and that be your 4-way for the Continental Championship. I get why they need to throw this on pay-per-view. Kazuchika Okada did make All In, but he didn't defend the Continental title. He was in the Gauntlet, so this is a good way to kind of slowly build to Takeshita and Okada, which, if that's the direction that they're going with for this, hell yeah. Because I think the world of Konosuke I can't even say his name, Takeshita. You just want to pronounce it out like MGF said, take a shitta, but I think much better of the Cinnabon Man, as me and my buddy Curtis call him. So the broadcast team then points out, hey, Swerve Strickland had signed his new contract. There's footage that aired that was on social media of Prince Nana and Swerve Strickland at Swerve's childhood home. Swerve bought it with the money that he got from the contract, so this was really effective. And there's a lot of background into why this is important. He said there's photos from it. Swerve said the house was foreclosed during his childhood. He mentioned his new contract and announced that he purchased the home. Like I said, called Nana his manager and his best friend before hugging him, and they headed inside the house. So this was a good segment, and I'll get to the ending of this show, which was just fantastic. Listen, okay, Jamie Hayter is one of my queens, and I love this girl to death. But what they've been doing to her in this rollout since she came back at All In is just a bunch of horse shit. And so I think, 30 minutes before the show, she gets announced in a random match against Robin Renegade. Who the fuck's Robin Renegade? You AEW cultists in the comments can, explain to me who that is. I think she's one of the Renegade twins who I guess Mercedes Moné wants to form her new CEO group, but that hasn't happened. So Saraya and Harley Cameron are watching this from backstage. This match did not go very long. It didn't need to go very long. Jamie Hayter beats Robin Renegade with the Haterade in about 2 minutes. This was a good showcase match, but listen, it's just you're not doing Jamie Hayter a service by announcing her matches 30 minutes before the show and just having her go in there against somebody that nobody cares about, and knowing that it's not going to be a competitive match. Granted, I'm okay with using these type of squash adjacent matches if they're in small doses, but at some point they got to find something better for Jamie Hayter to do. Because get to the Saraya match, she's going to destroy Saraya because Saraya has no credibility, and get her to Mercedes Moné or get her to Mariah May. Have her get involved in something more meaningful than this. I understand she was gone for 15 months, but still, she was the women's champion and maybe one of the best women's champions ever. Treat her with respect. You don't return her on the 0-hour kickoff show. You don't have her matches get announced 30 minutes before the show on Twitter. So it's just, it's ridiculous. So then we highlight the finish to the tag team match. I think it was a 6-man tag, a trios match last week. Maybe it's 8-man. I can't even remember. Hook forced Roderick Strong to tap out to the Red Rum, but the ref, Aubrey Edwards, did a terrible job here. Literally stepped over the foot, and you could have easily done a spot where they could have restarted the match, but that wasn't how this was supposed to go. But she literally tripped over Roderick Strong's foot under the ropes and didn't do anything about it. So that was just an odd thing. So, Renee Paquette is backstage with Roddy and Christopher Daniels talking about the finish of the match. Hook shows up, agrees with Strong's assessment of the finish. Hook offers Strong a rematch right on the show tonight. Strong said he wouldn't do it in Milwaukee, insults them, and he would let Hook know when the match would take place. So we're doing Roddy and Hook for the FTW title. That should be admittedly a good match, but like I said with Hook, and I said I think this is after All Out or All In, we've got to get him away from the FTW title. It just doesn't do anything for him. It's my problem. Hook is fun, but the guy hasn't grown as a character since he got there, and he's been literally glued to that title for like 3 years. It's just like we got to move on from it. So then backstage, Marina Shafir was beating up a bunch of random people. John Moxley is with her. So Moxley and Shafir approached Jack Perry and the Young Bucks. Moxley said he didn't care what they say. Jack Perry is a sweet kid. Biggest heel thing you can do right now, John Moxley, is praising Jack Perry. That almost felt like a shot at CM Punk a little bit, but who knows. So Moxley and Shafir are walking away, and Moxley's coming up after the break. So then they make their entrance to John Moxley's New Japan entrance. It's much more better executed than the shock bullshit entrance that they had on Dynamite last week. Moxley looked around and said he wondered if Darby Allin was somewhere out there in Milwaukee. He said he didn't think so. He recalled facing Allin when Allin was living in his car in the early stages of AEW. He said he beat the piss out of Allin, who was all smiles. Said he knew then that Darby Allin would be special, and he still feels he's special. Moxley said he just wanted to talk to Allin. He just dropped the mic and left. They hopped the barricade, exited through the crowd. What in the fuck is this angle? Like, they're 2 weeks into this thing, and I don't know what the fuck they're going for here. They were talking about taking over the company. They're talking about doing things with Darby Allin. What is this? And Moxley's, is he a heel? Is he not? They're beating up people. What is this? It's really vague, and I understand it's baby steps. You're in the early stages of this thing, but it almost feels like breadcrumbs. Like, you gotta leave more crumbs than what they've been doing. Like, this is John Moxley. This is John Moxley. And this is all you're giving us? Like, come on. It was weird. Renee, we get the dreaded Chris Jericho segment. Thank God it didn't happen in the ring. So Jericho, Big Bill, and Brian Keith are being interviewed by Renee Paquette. Jericho says he's still upset about Orange Cassidy ruining his jacket from 4 years ago. $7,000. So the footage airs back from... this was right before All Out 2020 during the pandemic, where Orange Cassidy just flipped a switch that led to orange juice falling on Jericho in the Inner Circle back then, when it's funny that most of those guys aren't there anymore, which is really interesting. and ruined the jacket. So Jericho claimed that the jacket cost $7,000, and Keith would freshly squeeze it out of his head on Friday because Brian Keith and Orange Cassidy is in that qualifying match. Orange Cassidy enters the picture being his nonchalant self, which is just fantastic. He just plays his role so well. He tells Keith to tell Jericho that if Brian Keith beats him on Friday, he'll give him the $7,000 in cash. And then Orange Cassidy just walks away. Keith barked about disrespect and said he would make sure that Cassidy pays the price on Collision. So that was whatever. So then we get Nyla Rose and Mariah May for the women's championship here. Why did this match need to happen? And I understand, like, some people say, oh, you know, hey, it's Beast versus Beauty, or it's Beauty versus Beast, and Nyla Rose is a former women's champion. Listen, Nyla Rose has done jack shit in a long time. I think she's a very accomplished woman. But again, like the Kyle Fletcher situation, you are just giving away title matches. And again, this is not the Continental Championship, not to disrespect it, but it's like way down the totem pole. This is the Women's World Championship. The Women's World Championship that Mariah May just won at your biggest show of the year, and she is defending it in a no-heat-filled match against Nyla Rose. This match went about 10 minutes. Nyla sets up for the Beast Bomb. May avoids. Dove at Rose from the middle rope. And Rose catches May, rolled through, power slammed her. May rolls out to the floor. Aubrey Edwards rolled to the floor to check on her. Rose stood on the ring steps. May charged at Rose and swept her legs out. May booted Rose off the ring steps and then returned to the ring and ordered Edwards to count. And Nyla Rose gets in before the count of 10. Then Mariah May hits the knee strike and hits a Storm Zero for the win. So she's still using Toni Storm's move. So it's clear that we're not done with that quite yet. Where the fuck's Mina Shirakawa? Like, this felt like a great opportunity to at least, you know, start building to something there. We all love Mina Shirakawa. And this is a match being thrown for the sake to give Mariah a win. But what does it do for her? Yeah, she beat a former women's champion, but Nyla Rose hasn't felt significant on the show in a while. And these wins, we were told by AEW, even though the rankings are not there anymore, we were told by AEW that the rankings are supposed to matter. So, okay. So this was just weird. A couple matches that were just set up really on a whim and nothing else. So we get a Deonna Purrazzo video package. Great to see Deonna back. She sat at a table and was surrounded by candles. She spoke about how every great artist goes through phases. She said the bull rope match was meant to be her magnum opus, but it was not. She took a sip of wine, slammed the glass down, and said she was not finished making art. So then Excalibur now announces on Collision that Hikaru Shida is facing Deonna Purrazzo. Mind you, Hikaru Shida has got a TBS title match. By the way, she's already lost to the champion once, and they're setting this up again 2 weeks later, which is a whole separate issue. But Hikaru Shida has got a women's championship match the next night in Chicago at All Out. Why is she having a non-title, just nondescript match? Granted, I love Deonna Purrazzo, I love Hikaru Shida. Why are they having this match? Because Deonna Purrazzo said, yeah, I want to continue making art. I want to get my heat back. Listen, it doesn't do anything for Deonna because Deonna's going to lose, clearly, because Hikaru Shida's got a pay-per-view match the next night. So what does that accomplish? Again, really just simple, just obvious glaring things with AEW that just piss me off. Then we get nails on a chalkboard. Mercedes Moné and Camille. By the way, Mercedes Moné has the worst... There's a lot of great opening lines in wrestling right now. Mercedes Moné has got the worst opening line to a promo ever. She goes, please say hello to your CEO. Why are you being polite? You're a heel. And okay, nobody gives a crap about the CEO. I can't even do it. It's so stupid. Man, Mercedes has just evaporated my love for her with this god-awful character. Like, Sasha Banks feels like a different lifetime. It's just, I feel like every week that I talk about these segments and these cringe-inducing segments, it just makes me just so angry about how one of the great women's wrestlers of this generation has just been fucking ruined in AEW. So, Once in the ring, Mercedes Moné mentioned that she successfully defended the New Japan Strong Women's Championship against Momo Watanabe at Capital Collision in DC. So that was really cool. She put over that. They're really distancing themselves a long way away from that disaster that was that Britt Baker feud, which should have been a slam dunk, but everybody's at fault for that. So she questioned how Hikaru Shida could refer to herself as the ace when she's not the face. And Monet said she's the face of TBS and the whole damn company. That's up for debate. So Hikaru Shida appears on the big screen, says she's one katana away from becoming TBS champion. She showed off her new t-shirt and said, "You can't beat the ace." Christopher Daniels joined Shida. Daniels says Camille's a hell of a competitor, but she's a nuisance at ringside. And he bans Camille from ringside at All Out. Shida closes with a sayonara, bitch, which is a good closing line. Listen, I'm a little bit more understanding of, Camille was a big role in why that finish happened. But my problem is they literally did this match 2 weeks ago. And again, this could have been a really big first time ever match. But you did it at the expense of building a crappy feud at your biggest show of the year in a crappy conclusion of a match. But I do like that they kind of took Camille out of this. It beefs up the possibility that maybe Shida might win. I don't think so. To be honest with you, I would welcome it because then maybe it would just force a hard reset on this Mercedes Moné character. But I just don't see them doing it. So then backstage we get the Young Bucks calling for a cameraman, come close, and because Jack Perry had something to say, Perry turned around and recalled being in the ring for the first time that Bryan Danielson stepped foot in an AEW ring. Good callback to All Out, which we're almost at the end. I think we're about at the anniversary of 3 years to the day when Bryan Danielson made his debut, or it's give or take by a couple days. Perry said he promised himself that someday he would step foot in the ring with Danielson. Perry recalled being at home and finding out that Danielson's career was coming to an end. Perry said he thought he wouldn't get this chance, but he didn't give up. Perry said he went to Japan and started over, said he sold his own t-shirts and did everything he had to do to get back to AEW, and he did it by himself. He said Danielson could have helped him, but he only cares about his fairy tale ending. Perry said it won't be a happy ending. Matthew said he and Nicholas will do anything to make sure the AEW World Championship comes back to the Elite. Listen, this was a decent little promo. I think there's no way in hell Jack Perry wins on Saturday. He shouldn't. It would send a bad message. Also, just ending Bryan Danielson's title reign 2 weeks into it just doesn't make any sense. And also, the rumor going around, and especially the way that the end of this show finished, leads me to believe that this will not be the main event as a world title match. Frankly, Jack Perry doesn't deserve to main event. Bryan Danielson does deserve, and the world championship should. But given the way this show ended and who's involved, it's maybe the best feud ever. We'll talk about it in just a second once I get through this last match here. But so Bryan Danielson's on commentary for Bryan Danielson's on on commentary for this match. Orange Cassidy and Kyle O'Reilly made their entrance. Excalibur and Danielson spoke about the word of the day from Mark Briscoe, which I didn't miss, which was stupendous. Which, man, better use of the word than Vince McMahon tried to use for WrestleMania 38, which was Mark Briscoe can just basically get over anything. So the main event is Pac, Wheeler Yuta, and Claudio Castagnoli. Mind you, they're the Trios champions, even though you wouldn't know. They were a thrown-together team. And they're taking on Will Ospreay, Kyle O'Reilly, and Orange Cassidy. So this was a fun little match to end the show, but not a whole lot of heat behind it. Like, really, it stemmed to the point where Pac and Ospreay get face-to-face. Ospreay and O'Reilly teamed up on Pac going into a picture-in-picture break. Yeah, so Ospreay set up for a hidden blade on Yuta on the stage. Pac jumped Ospreay, who fought him off and sent him off the ramp. Ospreay performed the flip dive onto Pac. I think Pac was trying to do the Poison Rana that he did last week, which was a really cool-looking move. So in the ring, Orange Cassidy jumped from the middle rope, so we get a DDT. Moments later, Cassidy hits a beach break on Claudio for a near fall. Kyle O'Reilly threw some kicks at Anilio and Claudio, while Cassidy threw light and eventually hard kicks to play up to his gimmick. Orange set up for the orange putt, but Yuta cut him off. O'Reilly put Claudio in a guillotine. Cassidy powered out of the hold, then hit a pop-up uppercut. Actually, Claudio hit a pop-up uppercut. Cassidy only performed the giant swing on O'Reilly, and then Yuta capped it off with a drop kick. Claudio then covers KOR, Kyle O'Reilly, for the win. No surprise here, the Trios champions win. Again, this was fine. Bryan Danielson on commentary is good. Pac and Ospreay are fighting off backstage. You can see that, and we'll talk about that portion of this in a segment. But after the match, Bryan Danielson joins his BCC mates, Yuta and Claudio, in the ring. And then the Elite shows up. It's the whole Elite. It's Jack Perry. It's Okada after his match earlier tonight. Matthew and Nicholas. Keep forgetting that we have to call them by those goofy names. So the Jacksons held Danielson while Perry prepared to hit him with a chair. Claudio tackles Perry. By the way, where the fuck was Jon Moxley? I guess he's just completely disowned the BCC in the name of this weird gimmick. It's just, what? Hey, what is going on with Jon Moxley? So Claudio and Yuta cleared the ring of all the opponents other than Jack. Danielson set up to stomp Jack Perry's head in. But Nicholas and Matt pulled Perry to safety. Claudio gets on the mic and said, "You kids made the biggest mistake of your entire life." Said he and Yuta have nothing to do it all out so far. So they challenged the Young Bucks to an AEW tag team title match. What? They're the Trios champ. They're 2/3 of the Trios champions. I understand that Pac's busy. Do we need to just throw... I mean, I understand the Bucks need challenge. This is an indictment on AEW's division, so we're just throwing tag teams out there. Danielson took a mic, and he basically was censored while he guaranteed that he would kick Jack Perry's fucking head in, so that gets bleeped out on TBS. The cameras, like I said, cut backstage to Pac and Ospreay fighting, and Pac gives Ospreay a brainbuster, but it actually looked more like a suplex on a production crate, and Pac jaws at Ospreay while Christopher Daniels barked at him to leave. So Pac gets one up on Ospreay. Ospreay's going to win this match against Pac on Saturday, but it will be admittedly awesome. So Excalibur, the announces that tag team title match is in fact official. That's a load of horse shit. Holy shit. Oh my God. And then he announces, there is a 8-man all-star tag match. Danielson, Pac, Claudio, and Yuta taking on, the entire Elite, Jack Perry, Okada, Matt, and Nick Jackson. Why do you need to have a match to build to a pay-per-view the next night? Again, this is simple stuff. You don't need to just be doing matches for the sake of doing matches. And also, Bryan Danielson, I understand you're going to probably protect him as much as you can. He shouldn't be wrestling. You should be protecting him and making the novelty of seeing him in the ring on his final run feel special. And throwing him into these thrown together 8-man tags on a show that nobody's going to fucking watch against SmackDown and against the NFL. By the way, that's a whole other issue that maybe we'll have to do another video on. But that's a whole problem. So then we get the contract signing, which is the main event segment. It's Swerve and Hangman signing their contract for their cage match at All Out on Saturday. So Swerve gets in the ring. Hangman's music entrance plays, but he doesn't come out. Shivani apologizes, tries again. Paige doesn't come out again. So then he appears on the big screen in front of Swerve's childhood home. Woo! Oh man, this is literally going to be fire because hang on a second. So Hangman goes inside the house. Said he could see Swerve's mother and father. Paige assumed that Swerve's father didn't love him very much. Obviously, you got to talk this up as a heel. Said what a wonderful world it would have been had Swerve never been born. Paige had a can of gasoline or a jar, just a case of gasoline, poured it on one of the walls inside the home. Swerve's going crazy in the ring, losing his mind, knowing what's about to happen. Paige recalled Swerve saying he watched him take his pregnant wife to the hospital and saying that he needed to choose between hate and success as well as vengeance and peace. Paige poured more gasoline on the front porch of the home. Paige said he told Swerve that he told him there was nothing more that he wanted out of this life than to burn Swerve's world to the ground. Swerve was shown looking pained in the ring. Paige sat down in a chair outside the home and said he would take what's left of Swerve at All Out by taking his pride. Paige said Swerve will be on his knees begging for his forgiveness, but he won't give it to him. Paige said it was time to say goodbye to the AEW World Championship and any idea he may have of holding it again. Page said Swerve would say goodbye to his career, his joy, and his happiness on Saturday. He said he would get some practice tonight. He lit a match, tossed it on the ground, and lit Swerve's house on fire. Oh my God, Swerve is just selling massive agony, while Paige is just in the chair, just stoic, takes in a drink from a glass while the house continues to burn to the ground. And it was actually kind of too close to him, but still, like, they really sold this well, and that closed the show. Holy shit, what an angle to close this show of what otherwise was a pretty lackluster show going into a pay-per-view. And I got to say this for a second, because I haven't really done this a service. I understand that Bryan Danielson needed to win the World Championship at All In, and it was admittedly a great moment, and he's going to get this great final run as the AEW World Champion. All due respect, Swerve and Hangman should have main evented Wembley. And I think it's going to main event this pay-per-view in Chicago at All Out in the Steel Cage. It should absolutely do that, because I'm just going to go out on a limb and say this. This is the best feud that AEW has ever done in their history. And I don't even know if it's particularly close. And there's some great feuds that they've done. But the level of hate, the level of animosity, the level of physicality and violence that these two have gotten to, and to have Swerve go into Hangman's house, and now Hangman go to Swerve's childhood home that he just purchased. You could say it's a gimmick or not. You want to believe it. And the storytelling levels that these two have done to make this believable amount of hate and heat between these two gentlemen has just been at a level that I have not seen in a lot of wrestling feuds. And this was one of the best closing angles that I have seen on any wrestling show this year. It's a shame that the rest of AEW is drowned in mediocrity or crap and cannot rise to the level that Hangman and Swerve have gone to, because this is fucking outstanding storytelling. Anything that these two have done together has been just electrifying for the last year. Between, you had the match at Wrestle Dream, you had the match at Full Gear, you had them in the three-way at Revolution, you had all the stuff in the build-up where Hangman's getting involved in Swerve's business. Even the short amount of stuff that they did in Blood and Guts was great. But let's get real. All due respect to Bryan Danielson, this should have been for the world title. It should have main evented All in Wembley Stadium. It would have had even more on the line. I understand that they've made it so personal that it doesn't need the title, but this is easily the best thing that AEW is doing right now. It's not even close. And I hope to God, because sometimes wrestling is not hard. And this was the easiest segment to book. They knocked it out of the park. And sometimes I just feel like Tony Khan wants to please all of the marks and all the internet geeks and just booking all these sicko matches where there's no heat whatsoever. I would rather have two guys who legitimately do not like each other, maybe not legitimately, but in kayfabe do not like each other, wanting to beat the living piss out of each other, burning each other's houses down, invading, doing home invasions, staple gunning people's mouths, drinking their blood. That's all the stuff that this feud has been. So this was a fucking fantastic go-home angle going into the pay-per-view. I absolutely think it should be the main event. It's the best feud that they've ever done. And I hope to God that maybe this inspires some more, creativity and more heat in a lot of these feuds and a lot of story. Because if you had stuff like this littered across your show, you would have more people watching. So that's always been my biggest issue. And when you see something like this end the show, it's so frustrating to see how the rest of the show was, because it was nothing outside of the MJF and Garcia segment to start the show and this closing angle. It was a whole bunch of bullshit. There's a whole bunch of nonsense in the middle. It was admittedly, these were good matches, but none of them meant a damn thing. So that's AEW Dynamite. We'll have some more content coming up later in the week. Obviously, SmackDown on Friday, so the last SmackDown on Fox. So really the end of an era, so that's exciting. And follow the show at OT Bike Wrestling here on YouTube. Like, share, and subscribe. Also on Twitter as well. And Off the Mic 28 if you want to follow me. And thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to you guys soon.